All right, I will go ahead and get us started. And I'm really pleased to be coming to you today. As I mentioned, I'm Christina from Carl Bloom Associates. I live in Atlanta, originally from the Washington, D.C. area. Carl Bloom Associates, we've been partnering with nonprofits for 50 years, and we work on membership and annual giving and donor retention programs. And today I've brought with me three fantastic fundraisers. Some of who I know personally, some of who I've met for the first time recently, and we're hoping that this session is really valuable to you in the gardens and parks space. We would love again for you to send us your questions as we're going through this. So let me introduce our group today. We have Jaime-Faye Bean. She is the Chief Advancement Officer at Prospect Park Alliance. She is in public-private partnership at Prospect Park Alliance for the care and stewardship of the very iconic 526-acre Prospect Park. She oversees membership, annual giving, major gifts, corporate partnerships, and plenty of other things. Jaime-Faye, thank you for being with us today. And then I have Aaron Turner. Aaron is the Vice President of Philanthropy at the Frederik Meijer Gardens and Sculpture Park, which is in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And he leads fundraising efforts for one of the largest sculpture parks and botanical garden destinations in the United States. And he's going to talk to us today about how his organization is growing and transforming. And then Sam Perry, Sam, I have known you for so long, so it's great to be here with you again. You are the annual giving manager at Filoli, which is in the Bay Area in San Francisco. You are a premier historic house and gardens in California. And you're in a period of remarkable growth. And I think people will be very interested to hear about that. You've had some pretty serious expansion. In fact, we like to joke about how you've talked about how you need a bigger parking lot. So we'll go through that today. All right, let's get started. So the topics that we're going to be discussing today are growing membership attendance, membership versus philanthropy, turning visitors into supporters, building the next generation of donors, annual giving, and lessons from growth, transformation, and change. All right, as we get started, I do want to put out a poll to our group because I'm hoping that this will give our speakers some context for who's on the line. So, which area represents your biggest fundraising opportunity today? Would you say that it is acquiring new supporters, retaining existing supporters, growing monthly sustainer giving programs, upgrading donors to higher levels, or building a major donor pipeline? And I'll give you just a moment to answer that. Thank you, everyone. I am seeing that it is more along the line of growing sustainers, upgrading donors, and that major donor pipeline is pretty important. So as we go through this today, speakers, perhaps we can touch on points around major donor pipelines and your views on upgrading donors and those kinds of things. So let's get into the organizations and the situations of our speakers, where they're from today. And I'm going to go ahead and end that poll. So three organizations, very different situations. Aaron, you at Meijer Gardens are in a period of, as you defined it, maybe a revamp or a transformation. And I will let you tell me in-depthly about that in just a minute. Filoli, Sam, you guys are in a big period of growth, and we'll talk about that too. And then Prospect Park, you are our mature fundraising program. You're established, you've been around for a while, but you're still evolving, never resting on your laurels. So let's go on, Aaron. I would love to have you tell us a little bit more about your organization and the changes you're seeing. And I'll come back to you with one key question, which is how are you converting members into different types of donors? But tell us about your organization first.
Well, we are the Frederik Meijer Gardens and Sculpture Park located in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We are a 30-year-old organization that was founded out of the philanthropy of Fred and Lena Meijer. Fred was a lover of sculpture, and Lena was huge in the West Michigan Botanic Society. And so the Meijer corporate is a grocery chain. Well, now they're more uh, full service, but this property was purchased, and because of the wetlands and sustainability, everything that was happening here, it was decided to donate this 125 acres of land to begin to grow out a botanical garden and sculpture park. So we see roughly about 900,000 guests per year. We have roughly about 35,000 member households, as well as all the other things that go along with being a cultural institution. We are building and continue to build on earned revenue, as well, so events, sponsorships, exhibitions, etc. And then we're also growing our major donor program as well as our mid-level donor program, planned giving, et cetera, et cetera. One of our key challenges, as you have here, is how to build a robust ecosystem of philanthropy that kind of prioritizes the donor journey from general admission, visiting all the way through planned giving, and how do we create kind of a interwoven tapestry of all of the different ways that people can support our organization. So moving from legacy giving with some of our founding donors to their children, but also understanding now we need to move into a space of access to our wider community and creating more opportunity for our at-large community to invest in our organization.
Thank you. Very good information. Sam, let's introduce your organization. Tell us a little bit about Filoli.
Yeah, Filoli is a historic house and garden, like we said, in the San Francisco Bay Area. I would say in this area, it's probably one of the most accessible historic estates and gardens. We've been around. We've been around for over 50 years. We were donated to the National Trust for Historic Preservation. But really, over the last 10 years, we've transitioned from a sort of volunteer-run organization. We didn't have a lot of open operating hours. We didn't have a lot of revenue generating activities. And really, over the last 10 years, we've embraced a lot of change and have grown tremendously. To now, where last year was our highest years of annual visitors to 750,000. And with that, we've seen our membership grow significantly over the last 5 years, from 10,000 members to now over 30,000 members. So my work has a lot to do with converting some of those members into additional donors to our annual fund, or upgrading them to our philanthropic level of memberships, which is Filoli Circle. So that's really been my focus, is how can we take those people that became visitors, became members, and how can we upgrade them to mid-level giving or just an additional annual fund donation. So we really are trying to meet people where they're at. So sometimes if people are really loving, we're really seeing that they're engaging with their member benefits, we might use messaging more catered to that with our philanthropic levels of memberships that start at $1,000 annually, and highlight that program to them. Sometimes we have standard donors or standard members that have one of our basic memberships, but we'll give on top of that. And so we really want to lean into philanthropic messaging with them. We're also playing around with messaging in our fundraising that is more specific to the visitor experience. So we did a big campaign last year around a special exhibit that we had, and we saw some strong success with that. So we're going to be kind of leaning into some of that messaging too. Yeah, we're very much in a growth period, and it's like we're kind of just trying as much stuff as we can try right now and measure what we can measure, and hopefully become a more thoughtful program. The other thing that we're thinking a lot about right now, and that people mentioned in the poll, is building that major gift pipeline. How are we going to take our annual donors and sort of transition them into major gifts. So if we talk about that more later, I can share sort of how we're thinking about it.
Excellent. Thank you. And Jamie, we'd love to hear more about your very famous organization and how you deal with having this mature fundraising program and how you keep things fresh and are trying new things. So I'll let you talk about your organization.
Absolutely. So the Prospect Park Alliance is a nonprofit organization, but we are also what is known as a public-private partnership. So we work in close collaboration with the City of New York and its agencies to steward this beautiful park. We are going into our 40th anniversary. And our founder, Tupper Thomas, was actually a parks employee who saw the need for additional stewardship of this park, and also the opportunity to be able to cut the red tape and move along, processes of capital restoration and other needs within the park at a faster clip by having a source of private support. So hence PPA was founded, and today we see nearly 10 million annual visitors. In terms of our fundraising, I think when we talk about PPA as a mature fundraising machine, I think that part of that it comes with being at a stage in our organizational history where we have a really fantastic, powerful strategic plan that also is undergirding a campaign at the moment. But that strategic plan really articulates for folks all the ways in which this gorgeous green space not only has such innate value, but also connects to so many other fundamental areas of the human experience, whether it's workforce development, recreation, the arts, environmental resilience. We have found so many ways in which the park is just brings incredible value to people's lives and is such an important part of charting the future. So I think one of the things that we're doing right now in development is really thinking about how that messaging plays out among our various donor treatments. Our membership program, again, is quite mature. And over time, we've built a pretty loyal following. We've got, among our mid-level programs, 75% retention. So we're proud of that. There's always room to grow, but we think that that's pretty darn good for now. But that has also given us a real strong foundation to build a major gifts program. We just hired our first major gifts officer. So that's absolutely a focus for us. Not part of this conversation today, but I should also say that we're also, I think, really coming into our own when it comes to institutional giving. And again, a lot of that comes from having a strategic plan in place and really being able to dig into the impact that we have as an organization and being able to track metrics in a deep way. And that nourishes the major donor pipeline as well, because we do see so many folks that convert from membership over to becoming major donors because they are impact driven and they want to know, okay, if I'm going to increase my gift from a $5,000 membership to a $50,000 major gift, how is that going to change the park a year from now? So we're able to articulate that to them.
Excellent. Thank you. Given that context for each of our groups or each of our speakers, I'd like to ask the attendees, please, let's take a minute to fill out this poll so we can learn a little bit more about you. You've heard from our speakers, they're all in very different places, but which best describes your organization today? Are you building your fundraising program? Are you growing rapidly, like Sam was talking about? Do you have a mature fundraising program? Are you reinventing yourselves, sort of like Erin was talking about, or not sure, and you're kind of trying to figure it out? Give you just a minute to answer. Looks like, oh, okay. We've got a fairly good split between building a fundraising program. We have 4 groups on the line that are part of a mature fundraising program, and then 1 hearty soul that says they're growing rapidly. So good luck to you. All right, I'll go ahead and end our poll and we'll go on. So for our speakers, let's go into our first discussion question. And I would say very much welcome whatever you would like to share, and we'll allow for some cross chat here. So what fundraising challenges emerged only because your organization became successful? Who would like to take this first? Sam, you have that interesting need for a parking lot, a bigger parking lot. Can you tell us how that came to be about, and how did that success change you?
Well, a lot of it has to do with that Filoli was not built to be a public attraction. It was built as a private family estate. And so we've kind of shoehorned in some parking lots. But we've reached a point of growth that on our busiest days during our busiest seasons, we have to turn guests or members away because we can't accommodate all the cars. So our experience team has been really thoughtful in thinking of different ways to address this ahead of time. We try to be thoughtful about membership pricing and general admission pricing so that everybody that comes can have a great experience. But in terms of fundraising, this ties in nicely to a capital campaign that we're in the early stages of working on. And one of the key projects is to build a new parking lot that will, and in doing so, we'll be able to welcome more guests more consistently, and we'll be able to restore key quarters of the property back to their original state. So we're really excited about that. We've secured some early funding to start working on a new arrival sequence, and then hopefully, as we continue to fundraise for the capital campaign, we'll be able to build that new parking lot. So yeah, kind of an interesting.
Yeah, an interesting problem to have for sure. Aaron and Jamie, how has fundraising changed since you've become successful? Your organizations are of a similar age. Would one of you like to go first? Jamie?
Yeah, sure. A couple of things come to mind for me, and one is that, as a public park in the heart of Brooklyn, we are surrounded by a number of different neighborhoods, and the demographics of those neighborhoods are pretty different. If you look at different sides of the park, we've got on the west side what you might call brownstone Brooklyn, sort of frankly, a lot of wealth in this part of the neighborhood that's evolved the last couple of decades. And then on other sides of the park, often we have neighborhoods where disinvestment has been a problem. Access to opportunity has been a big problem. So, we've been very successful in growing our donor base, growing individual donors, engaging folks, having our presence known, having them come to us and say, we want to make a gift. But what we often run into is that there are individuals living alongside one side of the park that want to come and fund a certain initiative on their side of the park.
Oh, yes.
And so that always begins a real sort of education process and conversation, which doesn't always end in a gift. Sometimes it does, about our commitment to equity and how we see development of the park as a whole in an equitable way, and how we spread resources around the park and ensure that all of our neighbors have the benefit of all that we have to offer. And related to that, I think that historically, capital funding has almost entirely been through city and state. It's not been through individuals, but now, again, that the face of our donors is changing. We've got folks that have more resources, and they have an interest in really putting their stamp on something physical and funding capital. That's a really big price tag, and people, while they may be attracted to restoring a certain beautiful arch or monument in the park, may have less commitment to donating a portion to endowment to ensure the maintenance of that. And so having to develop a capital fundraising policy for individuals that helps to make sure that we're taking advantage of those opportunities while also ensuring the future of capital maintenance for the park, which is always an ongoing battle. That's something that we've had to undertake recently as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Aaron, what are your thoughts?
So ours is a little bit different. We are a 501(c)(3), but because of our connection to a corporate entity, as far as, sharing founders, it's not always thought about that we need support. So I think our greatest success has also kind of lulled people into a false sense of we will always be here because we have these tremendous benefactors who have obviously since passed on. And as we move into the generations post, their passions and their commitments are elsewhere. And so we are in a space where our tremendous success has also made us a little bit un disconnected from the general community. And that's partially by us not controlling that narrative,
Mhm.
and also, leaning into the fact that we had this tremendous support over the years, but now we're in a space where thankfully we still do have some support from the family, but we've outgrown reliance on just them as our primary support. So I think sometimes when you have a shiny building, you have manicured grounds, you have these tremendous works of art that are being installed, those things were endowed years ago. So
Yeah.
we're basically still, living off of that particular investment. But to go forward, to keep growing and to keep building out what will be, we have to create different types of relationships, different type of connectivity points, and we are learning to do that. But we move faster than an iceberg, but probably a little bit slower than a tanker. So we're trying to move the ship in a way that connects philanthropy and
Mhm.
our next generation of philanthropy while we're navigating this huge transfer of wealth, but our
Yeah.
average donor is 69 years old. And
Mm.
so we're also looking at how we create a relevancy narrative to another generation that goes beyond just the fact that we exist, but creating how we exist, why we exist, and what is the way that we exist going forward. So one of our biggest things is how do we continue to optimize our campus? How do
Mm.
we continue to grow our relational relevance within our community? And then also, how do we increase program density to also meet our emerging market where it is and utilize this 125-acre campus to really serve our community?
Yeah, you all have highlighted quite a lot of challenges. And actually, I think some of the things you said in the beginning, Aaron, would be great to carry on to our next question. But I also want to open it up. Feel free to chat us if any of you are in a similar situation, maybe the family name of the organization or the perceived wealth of the organization is hindering you, or other physical constraints that you have from growth. We would love to hear it in the chat. But let's move on to some perceptions of, let's see, the donor. I already bought a membership. Why should I give more? Which is also sort of linked, Aaron, to what you said. You have this ritzy campus. Why should I give more? So it's really about perception. I'd love to hear from each of you something tangible that you've done to maybe change the donor's mind, or what your talking points are around this. Jamie, we'll have you go first.
Sure. I mentioned just a little earlier that move from mid-level program to a major gift, and I think that this question sort of ties back to that really neatly. So we treat most of our most gifts to PPA by default as memberships, unless someone is telling us specifically this is for general operations. I don't want a membership. And for us, that word is important because it really signals to folks that we're in a relationship with you, and you are gaining access to a community and you are part of a community. And again, especially as a public park, for folks to come here and to feel that by being a member, they are in community with all of the people that they see around them, and they're part of that sort of call to stewardship for our neighborhood, I think is really powerful. But when we are, especially when we're focusing on upgrading folks or asking for second gifts, sometimes asking for monthly gifts, we start using that donation language more, and that is more geared toward investing in the future of the park. And that's where it's important for us to really talk about our vision for the park, and how we want to continue not only stewarding, but also building this park in different ways, in the ways that it serves folks. And so I think that that for me, I think is a fundamental
Yeah.
sort of pivot in the type of language that we use.
Excellent. Sam, what about you all?
Yeah, this is something that we talk about a lot because we're a little unique in that we transact memberships and donations like completely separately. So it's kind of just part of our culture at Filoli that we do it that way, but it's not always necessarily what I want to do in terms of what's easiest for conversations with donors. So we work on this a lot, and so we like to say that donations help us dream bigger. We try to use language that it's forward looking about where we want to go, how donations help us get there. Sometimes we'll be project specific. About something we're specifically looking to fund. And internally, sometimes we'll kind of refer to membership versus donation support as sort of lowercase s support for membership, kind of helping maintain all the upkeep day-to-day costs of maintaining Filoli, which it's not, it is expensive. So whereas donations are kind of that capital S support that is forward-looking, that takes us beyond just the day-to-day maintenance. But it's always a balance because we do have a lot of donors that their primary motivation is the preservation of the estate. And so that's something that we're kind of working on as we're sort of bridging these two generations of supporters. One that may have found us in the last couple of years with all these great public programmings, family activations, families in nature. How can we give them messaging that resonates with them while also having messaging that resonates with some of our longtime supporters, that really the preservation of the estate that they love so much is their primary motivation in giving. So that's something that we're working on in terms of segmenting our language or getting to know our audiences better so we can also meet them where they're at.
I can appreciate the forward looking and the capital S. Thank you. That's good context. Aaron, what are your thoughts?
I would say one of the things I've experienced here thus far is understanding the importance of language and the importance of the definition of a thing. So membership is extremely important to the sustainability and vibrancy, I think, of any organization like ours. And it is a necessity. And because of that, that term alone and the history behind it, that you either can walk alongside of it while you continue to evolve that narrative, or you can fight against it. So the reality is people are used to memberships, circles, connection points, and oftentimes it's you can be a member or you can be a donor. What I'm trying to now is create a narrative that support for the Meijer Gardens has many different tributaries and it looks different, but ultimately achieves the same thing. So whether you're giving a planned gift or whether you have an enhanced membership or you have a regular membership or you get it through our individual annual fund or you sponsor something or you give a tribute and you pay to have a plaque on a bench, it ultimately raises the entire ecosystem here. So I'm trying to move to support at the Meijer Gardens and you pick your adventure. Our accounting should not determine how a donor engages with us. So if membership is the thing, even if it's tax deductible or has a fair market value, the reality is they're still making an intentional choice to invest in our organization. So I don't want to treat them transactionally, even though a membership by default is a transaction, because you give something and you get something versus a philanthropic gift where you are giving something and the expectation on return is the feeling of giving said gift. So by deconstructing the barriers between the two, I can create a donor journey that honors the person from the moment they enter into our space until the time, hopefully, they decide to leave us in their estate. And by honoring that journey and give them the opportunity to connect with us in the way that seems most meaningful. If they want experiences, if they want access, if they want to be able to bring, five of their closest friends, there's a vehicle for that. If they want to leave a legacy gift and make sure that we are here in perpetuity, there's a lane for that. And what I want to do is just be the best guide possible, because ultimately the goal is for them to find their place and their purpose here. It's not for me to tell them where I need them to put their money. So
Right.
once I do that, I've already deleted their agency in that. So as I'm trying to grow the bigger program, it's what do you love about us, and how can we make you love us more? And if that means you want to be here, our membership is as priced is based on two, I think, or three visits per person per year. And
Hmm.
ultimately, if you're coming here 2 to 3 times, you'll probably come here 5 to 6 times. So the investment in our cafe, our gift shop, other food and beverage, our concerts, whatever it is, that's easy. My goal now is to encourage this new generation who are trying to find that sweet spot in between the place where they can come and bring their kids and burn off all their energy, or when they're at a certain season in life and they want just a beautiful place to hang out at. But that young professional group, that's also the space I'm trying to get into. And their allegiance and loyalty is not necessarily in being connected to a membership, is being connected into an experience, a
Yeah.
community, something that gives them purpose and meaning. And that's what I'm trying to tap into, as opposed to leaning just on traditional terminology and the way that we've traditionally done business.
Hmm. Okay, thank you for that. So as I was thinking about the next question, there are a lot of questions on here, but for time, I'm only going to focus on one. I think all of these questions for the audience are good to be thinking about and asking yourselves. We know that retaining donors is so very important because the donor you keep is less expensive than the donor you have to go find. I want to know, in your growth or in your mature program or your revamp program, sort of a quick question, what is a retention mistake you've made? Sam, I'll let you go first. Any retention mistakes that you've made and you want to impart?
Yeah, we've made a lot at Filoli over the years for sure. Actually, when I joined Filoli last year, we were losing. I sort of entered at a time when Filoli was losing donors year over year. We over a 4 year period decreased from 2,600 active donors down to 2,200 active donors. And then thankfully last year we cranked it way up and we had 6,500 donors, which was a great change of course.
Yes.
But we're really trying to focus our stewardship efforts, one on timely, getting timely receipts out for gifts. We try to make sure those are personalized as much as they can be. So we're always trying to balance personalization versus speed on how we're thanking donors. And generally, if I had to pick one, I'd say that's sort of the first mistake that we had to do some growth.
Okay. Excellent. Um, Aaron, any quick mistakes that you've made in your retention?
There's no one size fits all model. That's
Yeah,
pretty much it.
yeah, I agree. Jamie, what are your thoughts? You agree?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with everything that Sam and Aaron have said, and I also sort of had my own version of learning that we need to meet folks where they're at. When we sent out our gala presale email this year and got a dismal response, and that was something that I decided we should be sending out digitally rather than by paper, which is what we had been doing. I'm like, come on, we're a park. What are we doing, killing all of these trees? But the fact was that that's how our folks respond. It turns out our folks love paper. So we went back to paper, when we got that poor response, went straight back to the computers and printed the invitations and put them in the mail. So
Yeah. Okay. Hey, if it works, it works. I'm going to put up one more quick poll for the group. Regarding retention rates, do you know your current membership or donor retention rate? Yes, and you track it regularly. We know it approximately. We could find it, but we don't monitor it closely. Curious to know how many of you are watching this. Uh, we've got some groups that are tracking it regularly. Excellent. Good to know. Good to know. Okay, retention is so important. Um, I am going to go on. So let's talk about data. Jamie, I'd love to talk with you about this. You do have a mature fundraising program. You have access to a lot of data. You have a ton of people that come and visit you. Quick question, what CRM are you on? Do you have a dedicated analytics team? And then tell me about your data in general.
So we use Razor's Edge, and we don't have a dedicated data or analytics person, but we do have three folks that comprise our individual giving and operations team. So that's part of their purview is to try to parse some of this data, and of course, we partner very closely as well with our direct mail consultant on analysis.
Yep. Excellent. Sam and Aaron, which CRMs are you on?
We're in AllTrue, which is a Blackbaud product. We're kind of right now in the middle of transitioning to Razor's Edge. So we're excited about that. And we do have a dedicated database coordinator that does help pull a lot of our reports. And that's a new role that just started last year. So we've seen a lot of really strong growth in our reporting capabilities since she came on.
And Aaron, what about your team?
We are on Salesforce, and I believe that the team here was on Razor's Edge a few years ago and then migrated to Salesforce. We have a tech team here that kind of helps us with some of the data, but I've also made a priority of my most recent hires that they have a deep passion for data and working within our CRM to help us build out the metrics that we need to inform our strategic plan going forward.
Okay, good. A quick question too. What one piece of data has become increasingly important to your organization? Maybe I'll give a couple of choices. Maybe it's more like you care about an age overlay, or you want to know if somebody has the capacity to make a larger gift, or you just want to know where they live, or Jamie, what matters to your organization?
Yeah, I would say both wealth and age overlays. We are looking to revitalize our plan giving program, and a lot of wealth here in New York City is created through homes that people bought, 3 or 4 decades ago that are now worth millions. And so I would of those two, I would say the age overlay right now to us is what we're spending the most time with.
Nice. Sam, what about you all?
Definitely wealth screening data is something we look at a lot here. And the other thing that I've mentioned a few times that we're trying to build into the database is donor motivation so that we can easily kind of pull this for messaging segmentation. That's been on the wish list for a while, but we are still working on it. And I could definitely see that being really valuable once we are able to kind of get it fully implemented.
I like that one. That's meeting the donor where they are, which many of you have spoken about. So, Aaron, what are your thoughts?
I would say well screening age, because obviously our donors and volunteers who are entering a certain season of life are giving differently. So what they're doing with, QCDs, if they're giving through a DAF, stock, what have you. So understanding their tax smart giving, also understanding that they'll give a lot more out of money that is not in their checking account. So trying to educate them more and more on how to leverage their wealth, whatever that looks like. And then the last thing is tenure. How long have they been on how long have they been giving to the organization, and starting to see if we can tease out any trends or anything that gives us more information on where we can kind of guide some of the next large gifts to. It makes no sense to go to someone for something that they haven't shown a propensity for, but that also could mean that we just have never presented the opportunity to them. So kind of just getting an idea of what they've done over time and try to get as much data as we can on where their passions may lie.
Okay. So let's move on to some specific campaigns. Jamie, can you tell me about a campaign your organization has run recently and why it surprised you? Oh, you know what? I apologize. We have a question from the audience before we go into that. Anyone doing any DAF marketing, donor advised fund marketing? We just talked about the importance of that data and the wealth transfer. Anybody concentrating on DAF marketing at present?
So I have been reaching out to the community foundations and family foundations in our area to kind of make sure that I understand who are their clients that are currently giving to us,
Yep.
but also educating the officers at those organizations that we are a viable nonprofit that would also be a good space for their clients or trustees to recommend for their donors. So I've been really working with the foundations on that and then working on some things internally because, I mean, we have people with wealth and people who have family trusts as well as giving through their donor advised funds. So just trying to make sure that we're present and that people know that we're able to receive those gifts.
And what wealth screening software are you using?
We use shoot, you just got me.
Sorry.
Donor search.
Wait, say it one more time.
Donor search.
Donor search. Okay. And Jamie, what about you?
I believe Wealth Engine.
Okay. Great. Excellent. Any DAF marketing or fundraising?
I would just say about the DAFs, we last year very intentionally just marketed in our materials and on our website that you can give through your DAF to PPA. And I think one of the assumptions that is it's easy to make is that if someone has a DAF, they're a sophisticated philanthropist. They know where their money's going. They've got it all planned out, right? But that's actually not the reality. A lot of folks come up near year end and they're like, "Oh my goodness, I didn't designate my organizations yet." So I think it's really valuable for you to be out there and just reminding people, "Hey, would love to have your gift."
Yeah. I like the term sophisticated philanthropist. I will remember that. Sam, what about you all?
Pretty similar. We've been making sure it's visible on the website,
Yeah.
the information people need to make a gift with their DAF. Uh, we'll sometimes promote it in different emails, like, did you know you can give with a donor advised fund to Filoli? We've used it as like a PS in different fundraising appeals too. But yeah, definitely something we want to do more of. I like what Aaron mentioned about going and meeting with those community foundations is really interesting.
We're seeing from the 30,000 foot perspective as an agency, we're seeing so many organizations being so much more interested in donor advised fund giving and marketing and emails around that. And there's even data overlays that can be done now that indicate if someone has a DAF or does not, and you can upload that into your database, and that's so very valuable. And then I think there's now a DAF Giving Day, which is October 8th. So I would say that that's a hot trend we're seeing as an agency. But moving on, being conscious of time, because I do have a few more questions. Can you tell us about a recent fundraising campaign that surprised you and why? And if you can give details in case anyone wants to replicate it.
Or I would love to talk about something that we saw here recently at PPA, which is we had a neighborhood ball association that felt that they weren't happy with the state of the clay on our fields, and our budget was not enough to fully restore the clay on the fields. We do use GoFundMe Pro, and so we were able to work with them. They were really motivated to actually raise the money. And they knocked it out of the park, pun intended, and raised, over $100,000 to fully restore the clay this year, which was such a boon to us, and are also helping to fund some new full-time maintenance folks for those ball fields, whereas before those were seasonal positions. So it really showed me the power of community fundraising and really being able to use a tool like GoFundMe Pro to work with the community on those sorts of initiatives.
Yeah, I like that so much. And I think the reason it seems so lovely is because they had internalized that you weren't just a service that was available to them or just a location, that you were a nonprofit and that they felt some ownership in the park. And that's a great story. Thank you so much. Sam, what about you?
One campaign that we did a couple months ago that was surprising because it was such a low lift was we sent a couple of solicitation emails to our standard members promoting our Filoli Circle program, just highlighting some of the benefits that come with upgrading and examples that the deepening of their annual support would have. And I was just surprised at how many people upgraded. It wasn't that many. It was I think we got about 7 upgrades. But in terms of just sending a simple email, and now we have people in our that have upgraded that Filoli Circle program, and we have a really high retention rate.
Yeah.
We have systems in place to get to know them more personally. So I just thought, so you hear a lot of fundraising that, don't be afraid to ask. Some people just never been asked before. So we're going to start doing simple email upgrade campaigns to standard members that might be expiring soon
Love it.
on a monthly basis now.
Love it. That's wonderful. Aaron, what are your thoughts?
Just really engaging our volunteer base. We have close to 600 volunteers here, and they average around 69 years of age. And when I came in, there wasn't a lot of excitement around engaging volunteers beyond their time and their talent and trying to usher in the treasure part of that piece. And so that's been something that I've been slowly working towards is building that culture that encompasses all 3 legs of that stool, the time, talent, and treasure, and getting people used to understanding that supporting the organization looks different for different people. But I mean, I'm not going to take away an opportunity for someone to give in a way that's meaningful to them. And like I said, for someone that may be volunteering 20 hours a week or, being present in certain spaces, but for some people, it may look like making a transformational gift. So I'm starting to just more intentionally engage that audience, as well as creating more opportunity for our general admission. We're about to launch a crowdfunding program for the Dale Chihuly sculpture that we have here that the community has really started raving about. So if they want to keep it, we're going to create a way for, whether you get $5 or $500 to be invested in that connectivity to that piece of art. So we're going to try a little something. My thing is, there are bad ideas, but there's usually not too many bad ideas that float up. And we look at the feasibility. If it makes sense, we try it. If it doesn't make sense, we can try it until it doesn't work, and then we move on to the next thing.
Yeah, yeah. Excellent. I do have a question from the audience. How often are you reaching out to your visitors and asking them to become members or to make an additional, let's go with visitors to become members and then members to become donors, if you just have a quick answer for that. Jamie?
Yeah, I think for our visitors, as a public park with so many visitors, we have QR codes up around the park and banners. To be honest, I don't see a lot of inbound over that. So a lot of our calls to donate really go out through our established lists.
Yeah, excellent. Aaron?
I'm working through our ticketing database. We use a program called Acme, and so I'm trying to start getting the information, as much data as I can get from people who just visit as general admission, even if I get an email address to at least start speaking about, what their visit means to us and
Yeah.
trying to build the overall pipeline. We have some internal obstacles to how to build that system out fully. And it's also looking at, retention and how do we build a reacquisition for people who have lapsed in their membership. But I'm trying to get access to as much data as possible so I can create the right segmentation in the right language to hopefully start ushering people down that donor journey.
Excellent. Okay. Sam, any thoughts?
We do, we have a promotion that a visitor that's not a member can apply their ticket purchase towards a membership. So
Yes.
we have lots of on-site visibility about that. Our guest experience team is really well trained on talking about that. We also have some visibility up about giving, but primarily what we're going to solicit them for after they visit is to become a member.
Yeah.
So we have automatic emails that go out a few days after a visit, promoting that they can apply their tickets towards membership. And then we'll do about 2 to 3 campaigns a year. One focused on membership acquisition, where we're really focused on those visitors that came and didn't convert to membership. And then we will also do campaigns to convert members into donors
Okay.
2 or 3 times a year.
Perfect. Yes. How many times a year are you running members into? I'm going to zoom us ahead to a couple different questions. Jamie, asking members to become donors, what's your frequency in your direct mail program?
How many campaigns do we do annually? It's 7 to 8 campaigns annually. So most months we have something going out.
Okay. Aaron, I think you're in the revamp of that. Are you asking as well, or uh, members to become donors?
We're
On
beginning
the
that
sort of on the
process.
small. Yeah.
Yeah, most of our individual annual fund
Yeah.
donors are members.
Yeah.
But once again, this gets back to that delineation between terminology.
Yeah.
So I even though yes, you may have a membership and yes, you may make a donation. I think the further we separate those two things, the harder it is for people to understand support. So I kind of move away from delineating members from donors because at the end of the day, when someone gives you something, period, even if they get something back, they made a donation to you. So I'm trying to start infusing philanthropic language
Mm.
all the way through the organization. And so in that case, yes, members are being requested to make donations quarterly at this point. I've been here a year and 1 month. So I've done
Yeah.
a few campaigns starting to build the muscle memory
Yeah.
of the organization. But ultimately, it's like I said, a majority of our donors are members. We have our society members who, they're giving, $3,000, $5,000 a year. They have a membership as part of their donation, but the fair market value of that donation for the membership is like $200, $250. So it's really convoluted, and I'm trying to figure out a way to make it clean,
Yeah.
especially because it's hard to move a member into a level that no longer fits the transaction. So if me attending the coming to the park is a $250 membership, at a certain point I can't add more value to that.
Right.
So I have to begin speaking in a way that connects them to the broader mission of why we exist, because there's only so many access points, there's only so many events I can offer. And once you get to a certain dollar amount, it's no longer that transaction. It is a philanthropic connection to your organization. So
Mhm.
that's one of the big things I'm also trying to do is what does membership 2.0 look like if you're building your whole relationship around a transaction as opposed to full support of the mission of the organization that happens to have this
Mhm.
piece.
Yeah.
So there's some nuances that we're
Sure.
overcoming right now. It's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's trying to figure out how to make all of those things play in the sandbox together. Because ultimately, what you don't want to do is confuse the donor. If they feel like
Right.
their membership is something totally separate from their general support, then it becomes, I'll give you $25 to help you do whatever, and then I want my access. And at a certain point, that access, like I said, I can only give you so many things. And if I'm tapping out on actual tangible value at a certain point, then I'm dead in the water at that. So I have to keep evolving what that support looks like overall.
Okay. Okay. I do have a couple of questions from the audience, so I am going to wrap us up to the questions period. So, someone says, when you get gifts at a gala over $1,000, do you channel them into a giving society, a membership level? How do you steward someone who comes in through the gala door, perhaps a guest of a donor or a board member? Jamie, would you like to go first?
Sure. We historically we have not channeled those into a separate society or membership level, and those sorts of gifts can be very difficult to convert into regular giving because it often is a guest of a board member sort of doing their part of the social exchange. I think one idea I'm playing with is that we choose sort of one part of our program to highlight as part of our pledge moment or cash call. Let's say, for example, our youth employment program, and everyone that makes a gift of X dollars gets invited to bagels with the youth in the spring when they start their cycle. So I think something like that is what I would like to see as a way to really tangibly engage people in our work and help them see the feel rewarded for what they gave at the gala.
Okay, and I do have another question after this. So, gentlemen, if you would like me to go on, I think I'll just go. Another question was, how many of you are using text messaging either regularly in your fundraising or with your communications? Sam, Aaron, whoever would like to go.
I've used it in previous organizations. I came from a public media organization. We used text messaging, but we don't currently use that here.
Okay, good to know. Sam?
We are exploring using it. We're actually working on finding a vendor to help us do that. We're primarily thinking of using it for membership renewals, like kind of adding it into our renewal cycle, and maybe using it sparingly for give days
Sure.
at the end of the year.
And Jamie?
At the moment, outside of text to give at the gala, we are not using text.
Okay, all right. So more of an emerging technology for the group. Okay, excellent. Thank you all so very much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. If you would like to speak with any of the speakers who are on today, feel free to send me a message. I'll connect you. We hope that you continue to have very successful fundraising programs. We will send this recording afterwards. And again, I thank you for your time. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.